Hello. I would like my story to remain anonymous. I am from Baja California, and what happened to me has been the most difficult test my husband and I have had to overcome. It happened on a weekend. Monday was a holiday, a day off, so we took the opportunity to go on a road trip. To be more specific, we were going down the Rumorosa highway towards the desert. For those who know it, they will surely remember that the descent is much more dangerous than the ascent, due to the curves and the slope. We, for example, especially when traveling with children, would take extreme care going downhill, doing it during daylight and always avoiding the night. But on this occasion, due to simple setbacks, we did not manage to do so. The sunset did not last long. Night fell on us just as we started going down the slope on the first curve. My husband has driven it so many times that he almost knows it by heart, but he was still cautious. We had not been going down for even 5 minutes when I felt a cold chill, the kind you only feel on La Rumorosa. I turned reflexively to look at the car seats of my sleeping children in the back seat. Nothing, community, nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to see. I had already heard stories of the woman in white, the one who gets on trucks, the one who appears to cars, and who they say is responsible for many of the accidents that continue to happen there. And to be honest, I had never believed in them before. I never thought it would happen to me. When I turned to look at my children, seated between them was a woman in white, with her head down and her hair covering her face. Unable to breathe, I turned my gaze forward. I remember that moment filled with confusion, horror, a buzzing in my head that would not let me think or hear anything, not even the sound of the car. I wanted to turn and look at my husband, but I could barely move, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw that white stain, and behind it, seated between the children, in silence. I asked my husband with the voice that barely managed to come out of my mouth if he trusted me. He said yes. I asked him if he trusted God. Without taking his eyes off the road, I noticed some concern on his face. He asked me what was going on. I told him, "This is the drive of your life. Do not turn for any reason. Do not look in the rearview mirror. For us, do not do it. Take us safely to the end of the curves." I began to pray while my husband asked me what was happening. But complying with what I had just asked him, she was still back there, and I was terrified that he would see her, that he would lose control out of fear, that we would end up at the bottom of those ravines, like the hundreds of cars that are there, shattered as witnesses to the dangers that La Rumorosa inhabits, to the lives it has claimed. I did not take my eyes off my husband to make sure he did not look back. Out of the corner of my eye, I kept seeing her. A few minutes later, as we reached the last curves, finishing the descent, I stopped seeing her. It was very strange. That white stain became darker and darker until it disappeared. I am grateful that my husband had the strength not to look back, because when I did, I felt a fear that I cannot explain, but I held back, because a scream, a sudden movement to save my children, would have been what she wanted. I believe that if I had lost control, my husband would have too, and we would now be just another statistic, one of the many cars that crashed. Those that people say are nothing more than due to the curves of the place, the gusts of wind that come down from the mountain. Those accidents that no one believes are the fault of the woman in white. My husband did not believe what I saw, and I am grateful for that. He did not see what I saw. But we know that although we will avoid that road at night at all costs, if we have to cross it like that again, he will listen to me if I tell him under no circumstances to turn around to the back seat. What I am going to share with you, I do so because I trust this community, because I know there will be someone who will believe me, at least one person. It is a story that I have always kept to myself. Other than Diana, the person who lived it with me, only my mother, my best friend, and a few other people with whom I made the mistake of sharing it know about it. It happened in a small hotel a few steps from the road, before entering a town that I do not want to name, but that people will recognize, an hour and a half from Mexico City. When my grandfather died, who had always been like a father to me, an obsession with roads was born in me. Those roads that he had always invited me to, but that I had avoided as much as I could. He traveled the entire country in his van, a 1982 Volkswagen van. He took full advantage of the few years he had after retirement. That van was the only thing he left in my name, although he did not leave any message with it. I always thought he wanted me to keep taking it on all the roads he had always loved to travel. I hate driving in the city, but on the road it's another story. It's relaxing. It has an almost hypnotic charm that I soon found almost addictive. Like him, I understood. Constantly, I would ask Diana, my girlfriend at the time, to accompany me on those trips. Her job consumed much of her time, but whenever she could, she would take a few days off and go with me, even though she knew perfectly well that I had no fixed plan or direction. That's how she went with me that time, that Thursday, when what I'm about to tell happened. We left the city intending to get to that place, but about an hour before arriving, the van started rattling. It shook suddenly, as if one of the tires was about to fly off, or as if the engine was about to explode. I was worried because, unlike my grandfather, I did not know that van perfectly, nor did I have much knowledge of mechanics, except for the basics. I slowed down, and a few kilometers later, a sign almost hidden on the side of the road, advertising a hotel, convinced us to stop, rest, and eat something. It wouldn't hurt to spend a night there, and then check the van with time, continue the trip, or simply return. The hotel looked charming from the outside. A few rooms were placed around a pool that seemed to have a decade without being cleaned, full of leaves, which did not even let you see the color of the water, or if there was something hidden at the bottom. It could have been filled with furniture and no one would have noticed. There did not seem to be any occupied room. No one was seen at the place, and at the price they offered us, it seemed irresistible to spend the night. It was hot, very hot, but it was also starting to drizzle. Diana asked if there was anywhere to have dinner at the place or nearby. The man who was attending, probably the only employee at the hotel, told us no, that only about 2 kilometers ahead, almost reaching the town, but that he could prepare something there, at the hotel's restaurant. We accepted, without imagining that he meant literally that he would leave the reception to go to the restaurant to turn on the lights, a place that, like every corner of the hotel, seemed abandoned. Not many people come around here anymore, and most of them, even if they arrive by mistake, do not stay, he told us. But we did not pay much attention to him. If I may say so, he seemed not to be completely well, completely sane. There was something strange about him, but he was kind, and we were next to a road that was always busy. We did not believe we were in danger. That is, if that hotel, if that man had been in the middle of nowhere, we definitely would not have stayed. But there, it did not seem to be a big problem. We did not believe we were in danger. The man seemed very enthusiastic. It became increasingly clear to us that we were the first guests in a long time. While he opened the restaurant, a small room with just 4 tables and a view of the pool on one side and the road on the other, the rain began. Then a red car stopped in front of the reception. The man seemed to be living a dream, as happy as he became, as if he was surprised that 2 different cars arrived in one night. He came running to attend to them. A 35-year-old man, and two very beautiful young women arrived. They too had encountered a setback, and like us, they found that sign by the road that made them want to take refuge there. The rain was already reducing visibility on the road. The hotel owner seemed happy to receive us, perhaps reliving old glories of the hotel, or at least reviving a past when that place didn't look like an abandoned hotel out of a horror movie. He offered them the same deal as us, a room at half the normal price for such a place. And he told them to come in, that he was about to prepare something for dinner. And since the new guests also accepted, he asked us to be patient while he went to the village for what was needed to prepare a dinner that would suffice for the 5 people who now occupied the hotel. We agreed, especially since he offered us some lukewarm beers that, however, weren't as hot as the environment. They would serve some purpose. If you've experienced extreme heat combined with the humidity of the rain, you'll know that it can truly become unbearable due to the humidity. And so, while the man went away, the 5 of us remained in that hotel restaurant, if we can call it that. Later, the 2 girls discovered the pool. They decided to get in. Neither their companion, nor my girlfriend, nor I was so adventurous. We didn't dare enter and discover what was under that layer of leaves. And we limited ourselves to helping them look for some switch to turn on the lights. Only one worked, but it kept flickering, and at times would go out for several seconds. When the girls entered the pool, Diana and I were left chatting with the other person. They had the same destination as us, and the rain and a problem with their car had also made them stop, just like us. And in that coincidence, something began to seem very strange to me. I was thinking about that when one of the girls' screams in the pool startled us. She sank for a few seconds and then emerged screaming again, asking us to help her get out. We approached to see what was wrong, and she swore that something had pulled her down to the bottom of the pool. She came out shaking, vomiting pool water. To calm her down, we told her that perhaps there was some trash down there and some branch or something that had provoked that sensation. But she was offended. She told us she wasn't stupid, that she knew how to differentiate between a branch and a hand gripping her ankle, trying to drown her, trying to take her to the bottom. She wouldn't stop crying. Her crying mixed with the laughter of the other young woman who mocked her while swimming and pushing aside the layer of leaves, trying to uncover a bit to prove there was nothing. She told her to go back in, that it was all in her imagination while moving the leaves with both arms. The other stopped her. She told her not to uncover anything, to get out of there soon, that she wasn't joking, that there was something down there. The more scared she insisted, the harder the one still in the water laughed. A scream. The hotel owner, returning from the store, wiped the smile off all our faces. "Get out of there, you stupid girl." "Calm down, sir. There's no need for disrespect," responded the girl's companion, respectful of the old man but firm. The hotel owner looked at him with a furious expression. He told the girl she couldn't stay in there and stood in front of the pool until she got out. Then he went into the kitchen while muttering some more profanities under his breath. He kept coming out constantly as if to make sure no one went back into the water. He turned off the pool light. He told us dinner would be ready in 15 minutes, that we should wait in our rooms. It kept raining. We settled in. Diana and I discussed the relationship the other 3 guests might have. They seemed too close to just be friends, but we didn't want to judge them. We simply wondered how such a relationship would work. I think that intrigued us more than the girl's scream. She didn't seem drunk or anything. To us it was obvious that somehow she had been mistaken. I mean, we didn't believe it was possible that something down there had wanted to take her to the bottom. We heard a commotion outside. The 2 girls came running out and their companion after them. He wasn't running, but hurried, dragging the 2 suitcases they had entered with. They reached the car and honked from there, demanding he hurry up. He tossed the suitcases into the trunk and then accelerated onto the highway. It was so dark it seemed as if the car had simply vanished into the darkness. The room phone rang. It was a very old rotary phone. The voice of the old hotel owner on the other end announced that dinner was ready. We returned to the lobby restaurant. We hurried because although the drizzle seemed to be letting up, It was enough to soak us again if we didn't run across the hallway next to the pool. "I don't think he'll be back, really. There will be leftover food," I told the man as we entered. It took him several seconds to respond. I even thought he hadn't heard me. "I already know few of those who arrive stay the whole night," he told me. He turned towards me and smiled as if obliged to do so. It made me a bit uncomfortable since I hadn't noticed before how many teeth he was missing. Diana and I ate hurriedly with some distrust, but we were hungrier than we had desire to question the food. Diana tried to make conversation with the man. That was her way, always looking for the good side of people, getting to know them. But the old man responded mostly with monosyllables. After a few minutes, we told him we would go rest. The old man went to the reception to turn off the hotel lights. He closed the door. It seemed strange to us, but I insisted on thinking nothing bad would happen that night. Something seemed to be swimming in the pool. I clearly heard it when we passed by. It was very dark, so I didn't want to look. Diana also heard it. She didn't want to say anything either. I don't quite remember what we talked about. I only remember that we chatted in the room until we fell asleep. The whole hotel was left in near darkness. The man had turned off even the hallway lights. Not a single car could be heard passing on the highway. It seemed we had gone far away from everything. I was asleep, but something woke me slightly. I heard that something had turned on. I opened my eyes a crack. On the thin curtain of the window facing the hallway, a faint glow could be seen, as if a light in the hotel had been turned on. Diana called my name. I was so tired that I suppose I pretended to be sound asleep so as not to get up, and didn't respond. She got up and peeked out the window. Then she left the room only to return a couple of seconds later, close the door with the chain lock and slowly approach me. "Wake up. Wake up, please. There's something at the bottom of the pool." I could no longer pretend. Diana was an extremely strong woman. I had never heard her like that. That fear in her voice made her sound almost like a little girl. I opened my eyes. I asked her what was going on. She told me to leave, to get out of the hotel, that she didn't want to stay a moment longer, and I didn't understand. I got up quickly, but she told me not to make noise, that the man was out there, in the hallway. I told her everything would be fine, that she should trust me. I stood up and approached the door while she walked behind me, clutching me as she never had before. I felt her hands trembling, her fingers digging into my arms. She had definitely seen something. I had to calm her down. I had to find an explanation. I opened a space in the door. I told her I would just peek at the pool. I couldn't see it from the window. I had to go out into the hallway to do so. She stayed inside the room. For some reason, those 3 steps I took in the hallway, I felt them heavy, slow, as if they lasted an eternity. They were steps I didn't want to take without knowing why. The pool light was on, flickering. It wasn't raining anymore. The leaves had concentrated on one side of the surface, leaving an uncovered space in the center, in what seemed to be the deepest part. When the light came on again, I could see her. It was a person in the pool, a woman standing at the bottom, with her long hair forming a sort of tangled mass, as long hair does when submerged in water. How could I see someone there, at the bottom? The lights went out, and in that 1-second blink, I remember that in my head, all the possible explanations went through like a bullet. It was a mannequin that had somehow fallen in there, that looked like it was standing at the bottom. It was a doll. It was a coincidence. In its hand, surely that girl who couldn't bear the fright had gotten stuck. Yes. Or else it was something more macabre. A body. A corpse, hidden by the old hotel owner. That's why he hadn't let us be in the pool. Because he didn't want us to discover what he was hiding under the leaves. And if she had been alive a while before? If when he touched the girl who left, he was actually calling for help? The lights came on again. and what I saw, far from clearing my doubts, made me feel more confused, more terrified than before. Whatever was down there, at the bottom in the water, had turned its head towards me as if it could see me, and then it walked. It didn't swim, no. It walked to cover itself again under the leaves, and that was physically impossible. At the same time, I saw the man coming up the stairs towards where we were, and I ran back to the room again. I put on the chain lock, quickly moved a piece of furniture in front of the door, and when I turned to see Diana's terrified face, everything went black. I regained consciousness a while later. When it was around 4 o'clock, Diana was embracing me. She told me the man had peeked through the window but didn't say anything. He hadn't tried to come in. I remember realizing that one of my worst fears had come true, not being able to take care of Diana. There was a certain fear I had on every trip when she accompanied me because I felt her as my responsibility. And now in that moment, when we were really in danger for the first time, I hadn't been there to take care of her. I got up. I was a bit dizzy. There was a certain fear I had on every trip when she accompanied me because I felt her as my responsibility. And now, in that moment, when we were really in danger for the first time, I hadn't been there to take care of her. I got up. I was a bit dizzy. I told her we had to leave, and she gathered the few things we had taken out of the backpack we were carrying. She told me the pool light had stopped turning on half an hour ago. I carefully moved the piece of furniture just enough to get out. Carefully in the hallway, I peeked towards the pool. Nothing could be seen. It was dark, but I felt there was something there, that something was watching us. I could feel the gaze. I quickly looked around that courtyard for the man. I was afraid he would see us leaving, even though we had already paid for the night and dinner. I didn't see him. I spoke to Diana for us to tiptoe out without making noise. We reached the stairs at the end of the hallway. We were going down, but halfway down, a shout from the man startled us. He came running from the back of the place, trying to tell us something that neither of us heard, or that neither of us wanted to hear. The 2 wooden doors faced outwards, towards the van. They had no lock. We pushed them open and ran into the van. We managed to start it before the old man approached. We didn't stop until we reached the town. There I parked, near what seemed to be a police station, and there we waited for dawn. We slept barely half an hour. We didn't talk about what we saw. We felt we wouldn't be able to explain it. But above all, we didn't want to remember. We didn't want to have that image in our heads again. Although every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. The woman at the bottom of the pool. As the day went on, we were able to disconnect. Forget. We drove around the town a bit and tried to forget. Shortly before leaving back for Mexico City, while looking for something to eat in the plaza, I saw the other hotel guest eating alone at a table in a restaurant next to ours. There were no signs of the 2 girls, and as soon as he recognized me, as soon as he realized I was looking at him, he got up without saying anything and left. We left there before dusk began to fall. When we passed by the hotel on the highway, seen from the outside in the daylight, it no longer seemed as terrifying as the last image we remembered. The grass seemed to be growing up the walls. The door was closed and there were no signs of a guest at the hotel or anyone taking care of it. We continued on and tried to find the sign announcing the hotel further ahead, with the intention of removing it from the road so that no one would arrive there by mistake, like us. But there was no trace of the sign. When I talk about this, people tell me we simply arrived by mistake at an abandoned hotel, that it was surely inhabited by the former owner who had lost his mind or things like that, always trying to explain what happened. But about the woman under the water, there is no way to explain it. They tell me it was my imagination, that it was fear playing tricks on my mind. I know it wasn't like that, and I know what I saw. After I dropped Diana off at her house that night, she never answered a call or message again. When I saw her by chance a year later, I was surprised to see her hair, almost completely white. Moreover, she seemed to have aged 10 years. Poor thing. The last I knew of her was that she had become a Christian, that she now dedicated her life to God. I hope she found her peace that way. Although many years have passed, on 2 more occasions I have remembered, I have relived that night, both in hotels, both in the darkness, both times passing near a pool. There. I heard again as if someone were in it, even though it was completely empty. Community. This episode is not over yet. We have one more story. But first I want to thank the people who welcomed us with so much affection in Veracruz, the people who came to my book signing, and above all, I want to send a very special greeting to a lady who had to leave before I could greet her, a lady who was with her grandson, and who I was told, commented in line, that for her, Tales of the Night is very important because she is having many problems with her eyesight, with cataracts, and can hardly see anymore. I just want to tell you that we will see each other soon, that the next time we go to Veracruz, I will make sure you don't have to wait in line, so I can finally greet you. And this episode is for you, with all the love in the world. We continue with one more story tonight. Hello, community. First of all, I want to tell you that I am a big fan of the podcast. I don't miss a single episode, and today I want to share my story with you. Several years ago, my dad's sister gave me a Mickey Mouse made of felt. My mom hung it on the wall of my bedroom. At that time, I was already sleeping alone. My room was at the far end of the house. As context, I must tell you that since my mom was pregnant with me, they told her that I was a girl with a special gift, that it would allow me to see things that others simply could not see. So perhaps it didn't surprise my mom when she began to notice that I liked to chat with the felt figure. Whenever she entered my room, she found me talking to the doll. In the house, we began to hear strange noises. Furthermore, things began to happen that we couldn't explain. The radio volume would go down, or the TV would turn off by itself. Things like that, which at first aren't so important. But one day, while my mom was washing the dishes, I covered my ears with my fingers and began to scream. "Mom, please tell him to stop talking to me," I told her. She didn't understand who I was talking about. At that moment, we were alone in the house. I answered her that I didn't want Mickey Mouse to keep talking to me. I was fed up with hearing his voice. My mom got so scared that she grabbed me by the arm and we fled from there. We went to my grandma's house and didn't leave until my dad got back from work. The next day, my mom threw it in the trash. When I found out what she had done, I started crying and told her that Mickey was going to get angry. I was truly afraid of the felt doll, and from that moment on, everything began to get worse. I couldn't sleep. I didn't even feel safe in my own home. I kept hearing his voice. The entity was angry with me. I stopped sleeping alone and went back to spending every night in my parents' bed. One night I was very ill with a fever. My mom was lying next to me taking care of me. Suddenly at night I told her to go back to bed. She told me she was there next to me and hugged me. "Mom, so then, who is the woman standing there in front?" I asked her. After that night, my uncle took us to a woman who also has the gift of sight, the same gift as me. According to this woman, what was haunting me was the spirit of a woman who for one reason or another felt drawn to our house. They bathed me in rose water and put a preparation under my bed. They asked me not to remove it from there until it had a horrible, unbearable smell. They explained to me that this would collect all the bad that inhabited our house. From that night on, I began to feel like a strong, heavy animal walked over me while I slept. Strange noises continued to be heard in the house. My dad recounts that he could hear when they dropped the dishes in the kitchen, but that he simply could not get up to do anything about it. Then my dad began to have back problems. He also felt that an animal walked over his body. He could no longer rest well. He never felt comfortable. We went back to the healer. She told us that during the night, this woman climbed onto his back. She did it to try to get closer to me. The woman was hurting my mom so that she would remove the preparation. The healer had to come to my house to perform a cleansing and drive away the spirit of the woman. Over time, fortunately, I stopped hearing her. I stopped seeing her walk between the rooms of my house. I think I was just about to turn 4 years old at that time. The truth is, I don't remember very well what happened. It's my parents who have told me all the details about it over time. Well, community, from then on, I have more stories that I will gradually share with you. Greetings to the whole community, and a show of solidarity with all those like me who have the misfortune of seeing what others do not. Thank you for reading me.